Before we get stuck into coding our own JavaScript, let's take a look into a little bit about what JavaScript is all about. So we've now had HTML, which was the skeleton of the website. We then used, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. We then added CSS, which was cascading style sheets, in order to style our websites. Now we're adding in JavaScript, and that's going to allow us to make everything on our pages interactive. So that's really exciting. We can start to create things that move around the page, where users can enter in information and we can do stuff with that. We can do a lot more things now, which is going to really turn you into a fantastic website developer. So essentially we're adding in the interactivity for a website. It was invented by Brendan Eich in 1995. So he was building on previous attempts of other coding languages trying to make websites interactive. So what's important is that we're no longer working with a scripting language. So before we were working with markup languages with HTML and CSS. Now we're working on coding. So coding is slightly different. What's important is that it allows us to manipulate data. That's one of the most important things. So not only are we able to manipulate data, but we're also able to change the styling on a web page based on the user interaction and any other variables that we want. So, and what's really, really useful is that the concept that you learn in JavaScript, and this is something that I wasn't aware of when I was first learning, but it turns out that all the skills and all the concepts and the foundations you learn in JavaScript are incredibly transferable to all the other coding languages that you may have heard of. So you might have heard of Python or Java or things like that. They're essentially, all the concepts are much the same. You just have to learn different ways of writing it out, let's say. But it's incredibly worth your time to learn JavaScript, not just for being able to create websites, but also because you're then going to be able to apply this to a lot of other coding languages. So JavaScript is very much worth learning. So in 2019, it came up as the third most in-demand language based on Indeed.com and its postings in the USA. Alongside Java and Python. So we're going to also be learning Python in this course as well. So as you can see, even the salaries are looking very good for JavaScript. So it's definitely worth learning JavaScript, not just because there are some of the most jobs going out there with some of the largest salaries, but as we talked about in the previous slide, it's very transferable as well. So things to take away from this introduction lecture is essentially prepare to make your websites more interactive with JavaScript, where you can manipulate data and the styling of a web page. And keep in mind that it's very much worth going through the whole section on JavaScript, not just so you can make your websites interactive, but because you're going to be able to transfer those skills and you're going to have one of the most desirable coding skills out there on the market. So up next, we're going to look at how we can integrate JavaScript into our websites.